All right, it is Wednesday, May 6th, and welcome to the Fight Business Podcast. I'm Patrick Auger, writer for TheBodyLock and SureDoc.com. With me, I have Deputy Editor Michael Fiedel from The Body Lock, and our special guest today, Lex McMahon. How are you doing, sir?
Doing awesome, guys. Thanks so much for having me on.
Of course. Thanks so much for joining us. Going to dive right in with the hardest hidden question I have. So coming at you fast, do you have enough toilet paper?
Yeah, fortunately, we stocked up, and I've got both Jose Shorty Torres and Rami Hamed living at the house during this kind of unprecedented time. So every time somebody goes out, we go on a foraging party, and somebody comes back. We're supplied, we're stocked. Even though we got 6 people in the house, we're good. And worst comes to worst, a hose. Just hose it out. We're good.
All right. See, you've already got a contingency plan. I love that. That's great. But in all seriousness, how has COVID been affecting you personally? I mean, you've talked about who you're quarantined with, but changed the routine a lot. How are things going in general?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's changed quite a few things in everybody's life. For one, I'm not only trying to run a business. I'm also helping to act as a teacher because the kids are homeschooling, and we're just making adjustments like everybody else. But for the most part, it's actually brought us closer together as a family, which is kind of fun. Every night we eat dinner together. We do game night probably 4 nights a week, and we're just spending a lot of quality time together because what else are we gonna do, right?
Exactly. That's awesome. It's great.
Yeah. And of course, that kind of wraps up the way that you as a person have been dealing with this from a family perspective. Obviously, you have 2 fighters with you in the house. So you're doing game night, family dinner. But as the COO of Titan FC, which is one of the most prominent regional organizations in MMA and in the country, how has the coronavirus pandemic affected the way that you view the industry and more specifically your upcoming show?
Well, I mean, it put us obviously on a operational pause while we waited to see what was going to happen, while we waited for government regulations to kind of open back up again. We're still navigating it, to be honest. But, the main thing is it put us on a pause. We had to cancel several shows or postpone them, whatever the appropriate term is. I mean, at the end of the day, we're still going to have the same number of shows. It just will be at a different time. And I think what we've had to prepare for is a reality where it's totally different than anything we've experienced previously. So we're going to be doing events that won't be in front of a live audience, which is a big change. We always have a full house, sold out events. So that's going to be a change. Obviously, there's a loss of revenue that occurs from there. So we've had to, and it's a big chunk of revenue. So we've had to adjust kind of the economics of how we do our show some so that we can take that into consideration. We also have to put in place a safety plan. So I've worked at length in conjunction with the commissioner, the Florida Boxing Commission, in terms of putting together an appropriate plan, spoken with the UFC, spoken with the governor's office, as well as Senator Scott and Senator Rubio here in Florida, and then also the mayor down in Miami, his office, and then looking at some of the cities here in Broward County. So, we're working very much in conjunction with the various levels of government to make sure that we have the right plan in place that will allow us to get back to work safely, but will allow us to get back to work. And that's the plan. But it's exhaustive. I mean, the safety plan I just submitted to the Florida Boxing Commission is, I think, 8 pages long, pretty detailed. So those are some of the big considerations. And also, like I said, just being creative in how we deliver our product and understanding that we do have to make adjustments in terms of our budgeting. And so what I think you're going to see from us, listen, we've got a great partner in UFC Fight Pass, so you're going to see something from us that's very similar to the Contender Series. We'll be delivering 6 fights on UFC Fight Pass, and that will be it for the night. It'll be 6 fights, but they'll be great fights. I'm excited about them, from some very talented debut fighters, or kind of like 1-0, 0-0 fighters, to some really amazing former champions that are going to be participating on our card that I'm just waiting to finalize the bout agreement on. So I'm excited, looking forward to finalizing all the details so we could actually get the show. And know that once we get past May 29th, if we can pull that show off, as I expect that we will, then we're set up to do basically a show a month through the summer, have a brief pause in the fall for a month, and then close it out with a show a month. So it'll be a busy balance of 2020 for us.
Right. And of course, there's a lot to unpack there. Specifically, one of the things that interests me is that safety plan. Obviously, we're seeing the UFC go forward with 3 events this week, if you can call it that. I know it's not all in one calendar week, but the days are kind of blending together.
For 3 events in 8 days. I
Right.
talked to the Florida boxing commissioner, Patrick Cunningham, and he's like, it's going to be a busy week.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously we've seen there that they're doing the coronavirus testing on a daily basis over in Jacksonville with the nasal swabs. I know we saw the Tony Ferguson video going through the rounds on social media, and I believe antibody tests as well. Is coronavirus testing going to be present in the safety plan that you've presented to all of the authorities that you've mentioned there?
It is. We've been able to source that from actually one of the key providers in Miami-Dade County. So our safety plan will be very detailed. It will look at kind of 4 elements. First and foremost, we're going to look at doing testing, limiting the number of people on site. So when you limit the number of people on site, we're talking about less than 50 people in the entire facility. That includes the commission. We're talking about fighters only having 1 corner. The Titan team will be running a very scaled back staff. We won't be with a lot of the luxuries that we usually have, but we're still going to put on a high level show, and we're going to put on some great fights. We're just having to be creative in how we do it. But so you're going to have, the limited number of people. You're going to have testing in place. We are going to have the antibody testing, which will occur the morning of weigh-ins. We get the results in 24 hours. So morning of fight day, if you test positive, then you won't be competing. We will be taking temperatures of everybody who comes into the weigh-ins, as well as everybody who comes to our venue for where we're going to be holding the event. We will be continuing to practice what I'm calling practical social distancing. We will spread everybody out as much as possible. Fighters will have their own space for their warm-up area. At the end of the day, 2 fighters aren't going to practice social distancing when they're competing. But everything leading up until that moment, we will be spread apart, and we will be making sure that everybody supporting the event will be practicing social distancing. We'll be disinfecting the cage in between rounds and between fights. We will have disinfectant available and hand sanitizer available as soon as you walk in to the weigh-in area, into the arena, and then placed strategically throughout the venue. So, we're taking a lot of steps. Again, this plan has been approved by the Florida Boxing Commission. It's going through various governmental channels now. I've gotten guidance from the governor's office in terms of what we should be doing for this plan. So, I feel comfortable that we are doing the right things, and we're doing enough to ensure that the safety of our athletes. We won't be competing in front of fans. So, our focus really is on the safety and health and welfare of our athletes and our staff and the commission officials that are going to be supporting the event.
And it definitely sounds like you're doing all the right steps, and that sounds like a comprehensive plan to me in terms of making sure that everything is good to go come fight night. Just to circle back a little bit, obviously what you're talking about, having the hand sanitizer there, setting up everything in a specific way, getting that plan to the commission, and you talked about the cost, the economic cost to that, as well as that revenue being gone from the fans. So just to dive in a little bit deeper on that end. In terms of other revenue sponsorships per se, or partnerships that you guys have with, say, 50 States Vodka or Zebra Athletics, things like that, has that been affected at all as well? Are you working with those partners to try and generate new creative ways to get revenue going while we're in this crazy time?
I think it's all about being understanding and being a good partner during a challenging time. All of our sponsors, for the most part, have experienced some interruption of business. For the most part, everybody's still, engaged and participating. We're working through kind of, the challenges with each individual partner, but for the most part, everybody's been amazing. And, we're looking just how we can show, for a partner who is, particularly keen on having a live audience present, how do we, give them additional benefit. And so we're, collaborating with them to find ways to give them added value so that they, continue to see the value of participating with us. And, like I said, so far, we really haven't had too much pushback, and frankly, a lot of people are, just excited for us to get back to work and get their brands back out there in a meaningful way, because I think at the end of the day, people want the economy to get jump started again, and sports is an amazing way to do it. It was one of the first things that shut down, showing that there was sorry, it's funny, I just got a text from a sponsor saying, hey, don't forget to make that post for us. But showing that the country was going to shut down. You saw the NBA and all these other sports and leagues shutting down, but also you see with the UFC coming back up and Korean baseball and all these different things, you're starting to see sports bringing back the economy and being the leader in that front again. And so, Titan's going to be one of the early, leagues back in and hoping to jumpstart the economy. And, we're honored to be in that position, and we're honored to help our long-term partners, get their products back out into the forefront of the stream of commerce and the fan base.
Right. And one of the things that we've touched on a lot is that there won't be fans in attendance. And obviously that's coronavirus driven, to reduce the number of people who are in the venue. How will that affect, I know we've spoken about the finances and the loss of ticket revenue and how that will play a role, but how do you anticipate the lack of fans in the arena changing the way we view the show? I know you mentioned it would be very Contender Series-esque in that there wouldn't be an arena there, or a full arena there. But do you see any ways in which the show might be different or the same given the different circumstances we find ourselves in?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's a great saying in the Marine Corps that the motto of the Marines is Semper Fidelis, always faithful. But most Marines on the enlisted side, which I was, we have a saying that we adopted from that, which is Semper Gumby, always flexible, because things change, and so here we are in this unprecedented condition that we're all dealing with. And one of the things that we're going to have to look at is yes, we're adjusting the formatting of our show, but how do we make it so, if you watch the UFC that was in Brazil, which was very early on in the whole pandemic cycle, and it was really kind of one of the last sporting events that occurred, and it was done in an empty arena. It was, I believe, the first MMA event in an empty arena. Then you could have heard a pin drop. I mean, you heard the corners breathing, and it just, I had a long conversation with Gilbert Burns and Herbert Burns, who were both there because Gilbert was competing, and the fighters said they felt flat, and that there wasn't the normal energy that they feel, like in Brazil, Brazilians going out to the cage to fight somebody, you've got 20,000 screaming crazy Brazilians, Volcha More, Volcha, you will die, right? Like, if that doesn't get you excited and pumped up, like, not much will. So we've got to find a way to bring some energy to the show when we don't have that excited fan base. So, in live attendance. So, but we're working on it. I'm working with our producer and with my partner, Jeff, and looking to find ways to bring energy. And I think, you'll see something creative in terms of how we produce the show. And you're also going to hear a lot of really cool live, loud music in the arena, because I'm going to have that DJ pumping music in between things, keeping at least the energy from that perspective high. And, like I said, we're going to be creative, and we'll find ways to make sure that we have an entertaining show. But at the end of the day, what really matters is great fights. And I guarantee you, with the card that we're going to be putting forward, we're going to have some great fights, and then have people on the edge of their seats, and we're going to see some finishes. I will tell you, I can't tell you the bout in terms of who the competitors are, but you will see combat jiu-jitsu making a return to the Titan cage with some really high-level athletes. So I'm excited about that. I think that will be compelling for the fans. And then we've just got some fights that are going to be straight out, finishes. One way or the other, one dude's going to go to sleep in these fights. So I'm excited for that.
Ooh, I'm tempted to push you on trying to figure out that combat jiu-jitsu, but I'll let it go. It's trying times. I get it.
We're close. We're close. It's just finalizing the contract. So, but we've got an agreement in principle from the athletes. And honestly, the discussion now is about the weight. It's not MMA, so I'm not as strict about the weight classes. And frankly, the athletes have not been engaged in the same level of training, so their weight is perhaps a bit higher than it normally is. So we're just kind of we're working through some of the the issues there, but we'll get it done, I think, today. And I got the final kind of approval on the bout, and now it's just, hey, what weight can your guy make? And so we're working through those things. But I hope to announce the whole card later today, tomorrow, hopefully. And then we can be, promoting the event. The great thing is we don't have to worry about promoting an event for, a month to 6 weeks to make sure we have, bodies in attendance. I just got to put on an event that's exciting and have, give the folks over at Fight Pass some collateral material that they can use to help promote the fight so that we have a nice viewership. I think people are any content that goes on right now, people are going to tune in to watch, especially if you give them something compelling. And I think the combat jiu-jitsu match that we have is going to be very compelling. We've got some, fights that I think from someone who understands MMA and who loves striking. I tried to create bouts that were geared towards being really exciting. So Ben Askren, if he were fighting for Titan, Ben Askren would not be on my card. George Masvidal would be on my card. So I'm looking for those guys that bring exciting fights and not a kind of lay and pray style that, again, no disrespect to Ben. Ben's a tremendous athlete, but his style isn't always the most entertaining. And we can't afford that right now. This is truly the intersection of sports entertainment right now, because people are desperate to be entertained by sports. So we've got to deliver with really compelling matchups.
Definitely. And yeah, I'm looking forward to, I'm keeping my eyes peeled once you release those bouts, because I'm very interested to see what you're going to put together. And just talking a little bit about the producing side of things. Now, I've heard from a couple of other regional promotions that have worked with Fight Pass that when it comes to production, essentially a lot of that, from what I've heard, is on you guys. That UFC Fight Pass gives you a little bit of help here and there, but for the most part, it's up to you to produce everything and get that out to Fight Pass. Is that, based on what you're saying, is that kind of how that works for Titan as well?
Oh yeah, I mean, listen, the relationship is a it's a media rights deal, right? So they pay a fee for us to turn over content to them. But I will tell you, so we're responsible for producing that content and all those sorts of things. But Fight Pass is an amazing partner. Crowley Sullivan, who was brought in about a year ago, Stephen Tecci, who's been a part of Fight Pass for a long time, Steve Coyne, all those guys, they really bend over backwards to make sure that we have whatever we need to get the job done. They've sent out a really detailed best practices pamphlet that all the third-party partners on Fight Pass have received. And the partners that embrace that and really focus in on taking advantage of the UFC's subject matter expertise in producing MMA events, and incorporate it into what we do, they're doing much better, man. Like, and you know, Titan's no different. Like, you know, I have this great relationship with the folks at Fight Pass, and you know, live, real time during events, I'm getting feedback from those guys, and we are instituting that feedback on the fly to make our shows better. And so they've been great. But yeah, we produce the shows, we turn it over to them, and they get it out there, and they put it on their platform. They help us market them. And it's been a tremendous relationship. I'm thankful for it. I'm thankful for Dana for you know, negotiating with me on multiple occasions now to put multiple deals in place for Titan to be a part and to be an integral part of UFC Fight Pass. I mean, you know, I think it's fair to say that we're one of their tentpole properties. It's, you know, ourselves and Victa, you know, Glory, and you know, potentially like Eddie Bravo or Submission Underground. Those are kind of the main properties that are part of Fight Pass. And, you know, everybody else is doing a great job, but, you know, we've been there 5 years plus. And so we've got, I think, a pretty long track record and made a lot of mistakes and benefited from those mistakes to produce a really quality product.
Right. And one of the things that I think checks a couple of boxes for topics that we've been going over with limiting the number of people who are there and the Fight Pass production, will there be the unmanned cameras in place for this show? I know for Chael Sonnen and Submission Underground shows, which have been going on also as part of Fight Pass, they've been experimenting with the unmanned cameras. Is that something that Titan FC is looking at?
We've actually always had at least one unmanned camera as a part of our production for years. So that's nothing new. Yes, it will continue in that regard. We will certainly have, you know, at the end of the day, you've got to have somebody get into the cage and follow the fighters and get that up close personal. You got to have somebody coming in, following them as they walk. And you've got to have somebody who can make the adjustments on the fly. But we'll probably have, we usually have 1 to 2 unmanned cameras, and we'll certainly have that this time. I have to talk to our producer again, you know, to see if he's making any additional adjustments in terms of unmanned versus manned. But we run a pretty lean production team anyway, so when I make adjustments in terms of staffing, it's probably more on the side of the Titan kind of, the people that make my job easier. You'll probably see me, not that I don't do this anyway, but you'll probably see myself and Roger Crawl, our matchmaker, and you know, maybe even Jeff if I get lucky. We'll you know, we'll be in there wiping down the mats. Well, I mean, we're gonna do everything needed to get the show done, but production is probably where we're not gonna cut corners, because I need to make sure that we're delivering the same quality product that we normally deliver.
Agreed. 100%. You got to keep that product consistent up to, you know, up to those standards. I love hearing that as a consultant. Love hearing everything you're talking about right now with the systems in place.
Here's the thing, Patrick, is we're going to come through this, right?
Right.
We're going to come out on the other end, and there are going to be fans in attendance again. It may not be in 2020. It might not be till 2021, but we will have live audiences again. The revenue will come back to Titan and to every other league that's, you know, and promotion that's out there. It will come back. And when it comes back, the ones that will thrive will be the ones who made the adjustments during this period of austerity. And I'm proud to say that we've done it, and we're ready to, you know, we've tightened the belt and kind of accepted the reality that there's going to be some adjustments, but we are focused in on, we still have to deliver a product that people are going to be excited to see. Not just because it happens to be the only sporting event that is on globally on that given day, live sporting event, as opposed to like reruns of 3 old dudes in the park playing checkers and, you know, I mean, some of the crazy stuff that ESPN has had on. You know, it'll be live, compelling sports. But I want people to tune in, not just because it's the only thing on, but because they know they're going to see a great matchup. They're going to see some cool content in the combat grappling, and, you know, they're going to see a well-produced show. And if I'm able to pick up more fans because I didn't cut corners this way, and I put on great fights, we're going to come out of this and we're going to have a larger fan base. And our partners at UFC Fight Pass are going to say, you know what, Lex and Jeff, those guys over at Titan, all their athletes, they delivered for us when we needed it. we're going to back them when they need it. So that's kind of what we're all in right now, man. We're doing everything we can to make this happen the right way.
Man, I just gotta say, music to my ears. Why can't all of my consultant clients be like, that's perfect, man? It's exactly the right mindset. It's so many people miss that, especially with, obviously things are hard right now, as you mentioned, but you can't cut corners. You got to keep everything up to snuff. This is music to my ears right now, man. You're preaching to the choir. I love it.
Awesome.
With the lean production and all of that as well. One question I was curious about, because I know I've heard of many businesses doing this. I myself had to do it with my business. Did you apply for the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, or the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, anything like that, in order to help shore up things while you were going through the transition?
Sure. My partner Jeff and I have looked at it, and I let him handle those aspects. There's only so many things I can do on a given day. He and I went through it, and I know that he had worked on it with our accountant, and should probably follow up with him and ask where we are. But I'm not worried about our ability to produce our events and to do it the right way. We've been in a position, that's positive for some time. We've got great partners. My partner Jeff is incredible, and he always steps up to the plate when I need him to. And so, for us, really, if we weren't doing a show, we didn't have really, the way we've structured things, we really didn't have any overhead to worry about. So it's just as we come back to producing events that we have to worry about having the resources on hand. But we were prepared for that. So, whether or not, we brought in, and I'm not saying that we did or we didn't, it's actually, honestly, like I said, we had Jeff and I had a discussion about it, and I turned over everything to him, and, should probably follow up with him on it. But, whether or not that occurs, it doesn't matter. I mean, our business model, we've done it in a way that we're set up to succeed without any monies coming in from any of those programs. So we're fortunate that we're in that position and that we had kind of the foresight to structure things the way that we did. Hopefully that will we'll be able to sustain that for the long term.
Right. And one of the things that I've been curious about is we know that with these UFC events that are taking place, Ariel Helwani of ESPN has reported that fighters are volunteering to compete. They want to compete. They want to get back out there. Has that been the kind of feedback you've received from your fighters? Do you have guys who are campaigning to be on these cards, or is it a bit more withdrawn?
Listen, fighters fight, man. And fighters aren't the type of people that say, oh, there's a virus out there, man. I'm not going to fight for like 6 months. Unless there's a really kind of unique circumstance where maybe they've got a family member that has an immune system disorder or something like that, where they have to be very cognizant. But at the end of the day, fighters fight. So all my fighters, they've been all over me. Hey, man, when are you going to do an event? Can I be on the card? What does it take for me to get on that card? Can I be on the next card? And that's what I love. I mean, fighters fight. They just want to get back to work. They understand that it's important for them to be busy and to carry over whatever momentum they had coming from 2019 and the beginning of 2020, to carry that forward if they want to make the step up to the next level and up to the UFC. And we've got a lot of guys that are in that position, but when they sit idle, you kind of forget about a fight that happened a year and a half ago or a year ago. And so they know they've got to be busy, and they, there's not been one fighter that I've talked to who has said, I think I need to wait. And can I read your safety plan beforehand? They all know that I'm going to do the right thing, that I'm going to take care of them, that I'm going to ensure their safety. And their response has been, hey, boss, when can we get back to work? How soon?
And again, you just music to my ears. I can't tell you how many people I talk to that don't have this stuff, don't have that way of thinking. And you've checked off all the boxes for me as a consultant in terms of the systems, the plans, and everything else. You've got everything there. The last thing for me is, of course, you talk about risk mitigation. It sounds like you've got a lot of that already set up.
Sure.
If we get to a point where, as we saw on April 18th with the UFC, they got shut down. Everything kind of changed there with about a week or week and a half out. If we get to the point where come May 29th, we're about to get there, and then all of a sudden they go into lockdown, they say, nope, we're out of here. Have you thought about that at all? Is there any risk mitigation plans you have in place to deal with if we did get put in another lockdown? You think it'll happen?
I think it's possible that it happens. I don't expect it to be this month. I expect it to be if it is going to happen, I think it's going to happen because communities open too soon. And as they're opening, people in those communities aren't being cognizant of, all the appropriate safety measures. If it's, in Broward and Miami-Dade and Palm Beach counties, you have to wear a mask still. Florida's opening up at a faster pace than South Florida is. So as South Florida starts to open up, are we respectful of what the government and the subject matter experts are saying in terms of social distancing and whatever it may be, they kind of practicing common sense to keep people safe and healthy. If people just go crazy because they've been locked up for a few months, first of all, 2 months in lockdown isn't shit, man. I spent 3 months in Marine Corps boot camp. That would make you go stir crazy. So we're going to be okay if it's a few months or even if it's a couple more months. People will adjust. We'll be just fine. But I think that if people go crazy and they just get out there and they're so excited to be, outside again and all those sorts of things, I think you could see, a recrudescence and a spike in numbers, in midsummer time. And if that happens, then you'll see another lockdown. I could be wrong. It could happen in May, or, if you remember the early days of the pandemic, it was almost hourly where things were changing. And I think that's what the reality that we face. So do we have some plans in place? Sure. We've got plans in place that if the venue we're set to be in isn't available, that we'll go to an alternative venue in a different area. But if we get a lockdown across the board in the state of Florida, I don't have plan B, because this is where we put our, it's still too difficult to travel. We were supposed to be in Santo Domingo, the Dominican Republic, May 29th. I'm not going to drag a bunch of fighters to the Dominican Republic when there's so many restrictions in place and so much uncertainty that if you do travel, you can't get back in and all that stuff. So we're going to stay in Florida. If Florida shuts down, we'll go on an operational pause again, and we'll wait until the next opportunity. From what I'm understanding, I've really made the effort to speak with, Governor DeSantis's office, Senator Rubio, Senator Scott, as well as, county and city officials in various areas. I think we're going to be okay. Once we get the nod to go, my understanding is as long as we follow that safety plan that is in place and it's been approved, we shouldn't get shut down, and we should be able to get that show on. If we get that show on, then hopefully we're able to show a successful event. Then, the June 26th show and the show in August and potentially in July, those will all go on without a glitch. And, we'll learn some things through, the May 29th show, and we'll make adjustments.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like a plan to me.
And insurance. Got good insurance.
Yes, insurance is a big one.
Yeah,
that's for sure. And I mean, Michael, you got anything else? I mean, this man is just symphony for me. I'm content.
Right. I do just have one final question. What would happen in the event that a fighter or staff member, anyone who's involved with the event, would end up testing positive? I know you said for the fighters they wouldn't be competing, but is there a plan in place on how to handle that kind of a situation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if it's a fighter that tests positive, they won't compete. And unfortunately, just given where we are with such a short time span, that fight would be scrapped. And the fighter that was supposed to fight would just be moved over to the next event, the one that didn't test positive. If a staff member, even including myself, were to test positive, they won't be at the event. So if I have to if I were to test positive and I have to, enter my own version of Fight Island, locked away in my compound at my house and do things remotely, then so be it. You adapt and you overcome. That's a great thing about the time period that we live in, is we have the technology to do so. So, we're going to have a really, again, like I said, a very small number of people in attendance, and we're going to strictly adhere to the safety plan that's been approved. And if someone, unfortunately tests positive during, our testing procedures, then, we'll adjust. Semper Gumby, right? Always flexible.
100%. Well, Lex, I just want to thank you so much for coming on. This is going to be a hard episode to follow up, I will say that. But really appreciate you coming on. Best of luck on May 29th. Hope everything goes off without a hitch. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to keep my eyes peeled for those fight announcements either today or tomorrow. And just stay safe out there, man. Really appreciate it.
Awesome, man. And listen, anytime you want me on, I'm happy to come on. I think it's important that we collaborate together to, spread the word on what's occurring right now. And, we work together, we'll make the entire industry stronger. It's not just about the UFC. It's about, the promotions like Titan and the promotions that maybe aren't as big as Titan, the outlets like you guys, the outlets that are bigger and the outlets that are smaller. We all got to collaborate, especially in a time when there's so much disruption. If we collaborate, we'll have a much better opportunity for success.
100%. Careful with that open invitation, though. I will be calling you all the time. So you got to be a little bit careful,
man. It's easy. I'm, dude. As you can tell, I don't mind talking. Yeah. So I love to do it. I think it's important to do. Call Eric anytime I'm on. Any of our fighters are on. I will tell you just real quick. So a great story is Rami Hamed. Rami Hamed fought for me a year and a half ago, maybe. He then went and fought for Brave. He was scheduled to fight for Brave in Brazil, beginning kind of I think it was the end of March. The fight was canceled. He'd already given up his place to stay. Lebanon, the country he's from, had closed its borders, closed the airport. Rami was literally homeless, had no place to stay. He now is living at my house. And it's been great because, in addition to having Shorty Torres here, we had Stefan Struve live with us for 4.5 years. But, so we've always had fighters in the house. But what's great about having Rami, and he's both Russian and Lebanese. Shorty is Mexican and Puerto Rican. So my daughters, even though things are shut down, they're getting one night a week a Lebanese dish or a Russian dish. One night a week, they're getting either a Puerto Rican or a Mexican dish. Then, I do the heavy lifting on the other nights. But they also get, Rami is an engineer. He helps my daughters with their science and their math. We've made the best out of this situation. Rami trains with me every day, kicks the shit out of me every single day. Literally, he kicked me so hard in the shin, I actually had to go to the hospital. They thought I had a blood clot and they were getting ready to rush me into emergency surgery. I'm like, no, dude, I don't have a blood clot. It just really hurts. But we've made the best of this situation. And that's my message to people right now during times like this, man, is make the best of it. There's so many ways you can succeed if you put if you wake up with that intention and that desire to be happy, to be a success. It can happen, man. Rami's made the best of his situation. My family has made the best of having Rami here. Or you can say, I'm out of work, which is a reality. I get it. Or the virus, you can just let it beat you down, man. No, get up every day happy, be excited, make the best of it, So that's my soapbox moment. And we are happy Rami's here because Rami is going to be fighting. That's the tie-in I was looking for. Rami is going to be fighting on the card. I will give you that nugget for sure. And he's a great knockout fighter. So it's going to be fun to watch him.
Awesome. Absolutely love it. Love the message. That's great. And yes, 100%. You got to make the best of a bad situation. It sounds like you're killing it in that regard. I'm super excited for this card. Super excited to see Rami now. And I'm Yeah, I mean,
You
now I
gotta
want to know
cheer
who the
for him
opponent
now,
is.
man.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, but I don't know who the opponent is. I gotta, you're leaving me hanging. It's
It'll come out, I promise. And if you want to talk to any of the guys or me again right before the fight, just let me know, man. We'll take care of it. Just let Eric know, and he'll set it up.
100%. Well, thank you again so much. Really appreciate it. I'm Patrick Auger, deputy editor Michael Fiedel, and Titan FC COO Lex McMahon. Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.